Hello dear students, in this lesson we are going to talk about bearings. So if we talk about bearings, students, first of all we must need one point, which is the reference point. Apart from that, we need another point or a direction through which we have to measure the bearings. Okay, so let's begin. Let's say we have a certain point right there, and this is the reference point, for instance. So what we need, first of all, we need to draw a north line. Generally on the map we consider it in the upward direction. So let's consider this is the north direction. It's pointing upwards, and we can write, okay, this is NN for north. And let us consider we need to get the bearings in certain direction, you may say, or you may be given another point, and then you may have to figure out the bearings of that particular point or that direction with respect to the given reference point. So we have to measure the angle from the reference line or the north line to that particular direction whose bearings we have to figure out. Let's say this angle is 75 degree. So we represent bearings as 75 only, but you always have to use a format of 3 figures. Even if there are less than 3 figures, we add a 0 at the beginning, and then we say, yeah, bearings of, let's say, point A is there and the point B is there. We say the bearings of point B. That's very important. How do we write it? Bearings of point B from A. So preposition from is used just before the letter A. It simply means that A is the reference point, and with respect to A only, we have to consider the bearing of the other point, and that's going to be 75 degrees, so we can represent it as 0.75. Let's continue with the steps. How do we draw the bearing? Sometimes question might ask you to plot a diagram based on the given bearings. So the first thing you need to do is you need to figure out the reference point, and on the reference point you have to draw a north line. Then right from the north line, and you must be given another point or the direction, you have to measure a clockwise angle. Let's try to understand these points with an example practically. We are asked to draw a bearings of 50 degree. The first thing we need to do is we need to consider a reference point. So right now question hasn't specifically asked anything. Let us consider this is my reference point, and as you guys know that we have to draw a north line just on the reference point. So like this, I can draw an imaginary line which is facing upwards, and we can consider that to be the north line. This north line will be considered as my initial ray of the angle that I'll be drawing that in the clockwise direction. So for that, if you want to do this practically, then we may have to use a protractor, and right now question asks you to plot a bearings of 50 degree. So you have to make sure that from the reference point your north line has to be at 0 degree angle, right? So this is how we can consider that the north line is at 0 degree, and now the bearings we need to consider is of 50 degree. So we can simply draw a point right from this 0 degree to 50 degree. We can measure 0, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, and somewhere here we can consider that my point can be considered for 50 degree angle. So I can just draw a point right here, and now from here only I have to consider we can simply draw a line, and that's how the diagram will be complete. So I'm just gonna complete it. I'll draw a straight line connecting the 2 points. One is the reference point, another the point through which we consider the bearings. Right now we have to represent the angle in the clockwise direction, so yes, that's 50 degree. And bearings, how do we write that? I already explained it. Let's say the reference point is P and the other point we have is Q, so we can consider that bearings of point Q from P. That's very important. From means the preposition from has to be just before the reference point. Okay, so from, one second students, something is wrong with that. Yeah, so from P is given to you as 0, 5, 0. Make sure to use 3 figures even if there are less than 3 figures. Let's take more examples. We have to draw a bearing of 300 degree. In the same manner, students, we are not given any specific situation, so we simply consider a reference point. On the reference point only, I have to consider a north line. Now students, we need to consider another point which has to be at an angle of 300 degree right from this north line in the clockwise direction. So we must have some basic idea about the angles and quadrants. If we are considering north degree towards 0, so definitely if I just consider imaginary line somewhere here, that must be 90 degree. Now other imaginary line I consider, this should be 180 degree with respect to the north line. Then this is 270 degree, and if we move forward, we move ahead, we again get 360 degree. That's just an imaginary line, just for understanding purpose. You don't have to actually draw it. Well, what we have to do after that, just because as I explained that this should be 90 degree, this is 180 degree, this is 270 degree. So 300 degree from the clockwise direction has to be somewhere in this area. We have to consider that 300 degree somewhere in that region. So what we do, that we can simply do the same thing. We can consider our protractor. We can just take out the protractor here, and as you guys know, this should be the 0 degree angle, like north line has to be at 0 degree. So I consider that to be 0 degree only. And now you know that that's 180 degree, just opposite side. And if I further move it, let's suppose if I further move it like this, that's already 180 degree. And what I have to do then, this is 180 plus 90 is 270. We want 300. So this is already 270 degree. As I explained that, this is 90 degree, this is 180 degree, this is 270 degree, because 90 plus 90 plus 90 is 270. Okay students, I tried to be accurate, but there may be a slight difference, so I hope you can understand. We want to draw the 300 degree angle. We are just at 270. We need 30 more, so 280, 290 and 300. Somewhere at this position we reach, and this is the other point that we wanted. Then we can remove the protractor and we can simply connect the point with the initial reference point, and make sure to draw to represent the angle in the clockwise. You can't draw the angle like this. You have to draw the angle right from the north line to this terminal line in the clockwise direction. That's 300 degree. So again, you can name it. Let's say this point is A, this point is B. As we considered A to be the reference point, I would say bearings of point B from A is equal to, and that's the answer in this question. Now sometimes we are asked to okay, there's another bearing question we have been given, and right now it asks you to use appropriate scale. So we may have to use even a ruler in that case. It says make a scale drawing of point Q, which is 8 km away from point P, on a bearing of this much 110 degree. So students, here we need a ruler. Let me just get a ruler here, and it says 1 centimeter equals 2 km. So we need to make sure to use this much scale. The first thing we need to do is to consider the reference point. Question says make a scale drawing of a point Q 8 km away from a point P. So as I explained earlier, most often we have from preposition just before the reference point. So right now what we have to do here, we simply have to consider a reference point, let's say somewhere here. Let me just draw that. So if my reference point is somewhere here, the first thing I need to do is to draw a north line. So I can draw it facing upwards. This is the vertical north line I have. Now question said to consider 8 kilometer away. This is my point P, by the way, and we want another point at a distance of 8 kilometer. So based on the given scale, if 1 centimeter is equivalent to 2 kilometer, we want 8 kilometer. So you can use unitary method or simple logic that if you want to get 8 kilometer, you can consider 4 centimeter length on the map or on your drawing. Okay, you can use the unitary method. I hope you can understand. If 1 centimeter is equivalent to 2 kilometer, 4 centimeter is equivalent to 8 kilometer. But the important thing is we have to draw a bearing of 110 degree. That's the first thing. Okay, so first of all, what we have to consider, as you guys know, that to draw the bearings we need a protractor. We get a protractor here, we place it on the reference point, and then after we just align 0 degree together with the north line, and after that we need to consider an angle of 110 degree, so which is somewhere located after 90, 100 and 110. So this is somehow I got to one point, but we don't have to draw till here. That's definitely my line has to be in that direction only, and definitely it passes through this point only. But what I have to do here, I can't draw the particular line just till here because we want a shorter length. Let's check first of all. We can just draw a dash line here for our convenience. Let's say this is how I have to consider. We can draw it indefinitely like this, or I can just draw it like this. We can consider any line right here like this indefinitely, but we want a ruler here because according to the scale over here we have 4 centimeter equivalent to 8 kilometer. So the point Q has to be somewhere 4 centimeter away from this point P based on this particular graph or the kind of picture or drawing we are drawing here. Okay, so I'll just consider my ruler somewhere here, and I hope you can understand. It's a bit difficult here on this whiteboard, but I hope I can still accurately draw that. So somewhere here we have say 0 centimeter, and I can just mark it somewhere here. This is my point Q. I can consider at a 4 centimeter distance somewhere here my point Q lies. Okay, so this can be considered a point Q. I can just mark there. One moment. I can keep the ruler aside, and this is my point Q. It might not be exactly accurate 4 centimeter because I'm just using an online tool, but you have to draw it 4 centimeter, and you can even darken that line because you have to represent that much. So from P to Q, this is 4 centimeter on the map, but in actual it's equal to 8 kilometer. This is 4 centimeter here, but it's equivalent to 8 kilometer on the actual globe or wherever you're considering. So also you have to represent the angle, so that's going to be in the clockwise direction again. It's 110 degree. Now we have understood how to plot bearings. Okay, we are given certain situation, we are given an angle actually, and we have to draw that, okay, based on the given information. Now let's say the diagram is already given in front of you, and you need to evaluate, or you need to just calculate, just simply observe, either using protractor or by just given data, what exactly is the bearing from given point to the other point. So first of all, you need to get the 2 points that we need to consider the bearings. Obviously we need a north line. Then we may have to either use simply protractor, ruler, etc., or sometimes in advanced questions we might even have to use trigonometry. That's the next level thing, but you can still understand that. Let's continue with an example only. The diagram is already given here. Even an angle is given as 53 degree. The first thing, students, you can observe here, it says calculate the bearing of A from P. As I said earlier, from is kept just before P, means P is my reference point, and the other point is a target point. A is the target point. whose bearings we need to figure out, or indirectly, we need to get a clockwise angle right from this north line to this entire, we need to go all the way to this line PA, and we need this much angle. So that's simple, students. As you guys know that opposite dashed line is nothing but a 180 degree line. So that much is 180 degree. We have 53 more. So in all we have 180 plus 53 degree. So we can just add them, 180 and 53. That's gonna be 8 and 5, 13, carry over 1, 233 degree. So bearings of point A from P is given to be 233. It's just not 53 because we want angle right from the north line to the terminal line, and that's possible if we have added 53 and the other portion which is 180 degrees. See, this much is 180 degree angle. Simple. Let's continue to the next question. So students, that's it in this lesson. In the next lesson, we'll have a few more examples based on back bearings.